Somewhere in America right now, somebody is filing a real estate complaint that defies physics, biology, and common sense. We found 69 of them. Buyers evicting bees. Sellers stealing smoke detectors. HOAs regulating dog colors. By the end, you will know exactly why real estate agents burn out faster than surgeons. 1. 3 days after closing on a Phoenix property, a new homeowner called her agent in tears, demanding the sun be redirected. Her bedroom faced east, so morning light was apparently a personal attack. The orientation was on the listing, the disclosure, and roughly every smartphone in America. Her proposed solutions? Free blackout shutters or a full buyback of the house. Real estate agents handle a lot of things. Negotiating with the solar system is not one of them. 2. At 9,000 feet of elevation in the Colorado Rockies, the air is thinner. That is how mountains work. A couple who bought a cabin at exactly that altitude complained the air felt too thin and wanted the seller to install some kind of oxygen system. The listing literally said, "Stunning alpine views at 9,000 feet. Atmospheric pressure decreases predictably with altitude." This is fourth-grade science, and they wanted the seller to retroactively teach it to them. 3. Here's a contract clause no agent ever expects to see. Please remove the beehive. Easy enough, except this Oregon buyer wanted bees removed from a neighbor's property 2 houses down. Her logic? Bees fly, therefore the bees were technically using her future yard. She wanted it written into the purchase contract. The agent had to gently explain that bees do not respect property lines, and you cannot legally evict an insect that does not live on your land. 4. Buying a home in fall in upstate New York, a couple discovered their stunning lake view vanished completely once spring leaves filled in. They sued the agent for, quote, hiding the trees. Trees do not magically vanish. They lose leaves seasonally, and the listing was photographed in October. This is why experienced agents recommend visiting properties across multiple seasons. The court was unsympathetic. Mother Nature was not named as a co-defendant, but she probably should have been. 5. Threatening legal action over snow seems unhinged, but a Minnesota buyer went there. The listing photos showed a winter scene. His walkthrough was in July. He called this, quote, false advertising of seasonal aesthetics. Listings often include shots from multiple seasons to show how a property looks year-round. This is industry standard. He genuinely believed the seller was contractually obligated to provide identical snow conditions on demand. The case went nowhere, predictably. 6. The day before closing on a $500,000 Texas home, a buyer tried to back out because Mercury was in retrograde. His agent assumed it was a joke. It was not. His astrologer had warned that any major financial decision during this window was, quote, energetically cursed. Earnest money does not care about planetary alignment. He forfeited a $25,000 deposit and probably blamed Saturn. The seller, meanwhile, took the cash and the moral high ground. 7. During a second showing in Seattle, a buyer brought a paid spiritual consultant who confirmed the basement had, quote, negative energy. She then requested a price reduction. The seller's attorney sent back a polite but firm letter explaining that vibes are not on the disclosure form. Washington state requires sellers to disclose material defects, deaths, and known hazards. Ghosts, grumpy auras, and chakra imbalances did not make the official list. The deal collapsed shortly after. 8. Here is real estate trivia worth knowing. New York has what is informally called the Ghostbusters ruling. A 1991 court case established that if a seller publicly claimed a house was haunted, they must disclose that to buyers. So when a Long Island woman wanted a refund because hers felt haunted, the agent checked the record. The seller had never made any such claim. She was out of luck and apparently sharing her bathroom with a Victorian woman. 9. In the Bay Area, an unusual closing request hit one agent's desk. The city must change the property's house number because it contained a 4, considered unlucky in her culture. She was not asking the seller or developer. She wanted the municipal government to renumber an entire block. Address numbers are tied to emergency services, mail routing, and permits. You do not get to vote on yours. She walked away from the deal over a single digit. 10. Walking through his newly closed Connecticut home, a buyer noticed something missing: the toilet paper holder. Just the holder. He filed a formal complaint demanding $300 in damages, claiming it was a permanent fixture. Now, technically, anything bolted to the wall can qualify as a fixture under real estate law. But this was a $15 piece of chrome from any hardware store. The seller mailed him a replacement in a padded envelope and called it square. 11. At the closing table in Georgia, a seller introduced a surprise line item: $2,000 for the seasoning on his 30-year-old cast iron skillet. He had originally offered the pan as a gift, then changed his mind, then claimed the patina alone was worth the money. Patina is real. It is polymerized oil baked into iron over decades, and chefs do value it. But it is not, under any standard purchase agreement, a legitimate closing cost. 12. 3 listing photos featured a Michigan home's resident cat sitting on a sunny windowsill. The buyer, having seen those photos, insisted Whiskers be included in the sale as a fixture of the property. The seller laughed, then realized he was completely serious. Pets are personal property, not real property. In some states, transferring a living creature inside a real estate contract is actually illegal. The cat, presumably indifferent to all of this, kept the windowsill. 13. Armed with a flexible cloth tape measure and unshakable confidence, a California buyer announced the kitchen island was 3 inches shorter than advertised. He pulled the tape taut at an angle, which is not how measuring works. A licensed appraiser came out, confirmed the original dimensions, and the buyer still insisted his number was right. Math does not bend to feelings, no matter how dramatically you wave a tape measure across granite. He filed a complaint anyway. 14. In a Florida planned community, the HOA mailed an actual violation letter to a homeowner because her lawn was, quote, too green. Neighbors complained her grass made theirs look bad. The board opened an investigation, demanded receipts for her fertilizer, and threatened a fine. Her crime? Watering on schedule. This is the bureaucratic theater you sign up for when you buy in a community where the bylaws are longer than the actual Constitution. 15. An Arizona HOA issued a formal warning to a homeowner because her chocolate Labrador clashed with the neighborhood's, quote, desert palette. There was no rule about dog color in the bylaws. They just felt it disrupted the aesthetic. She consulted an attorney who drafted what I imagine was the most entertaining cease and desist of the year. The board quietly dropped it. Some HOAs treat color coordination like federal law, and the dogs are not consenting participants. 16. Picture an HOA bylaw requiring all vehicles to be inside garages by 10 at night for, quote, neighborhood uniformity. That was the actual rule in a South Carolina community. One homeowner got cited for parking his own car in his own driveway. His garage was already full of his other car. He pointed out that the rule effectively limited households to 1 vehicle, which is absurd in suburban America. The board doubled down. He sold within 6 months. 17. Threatening to sue his real estate agent, a North Carolina buyer was furious that his neighbor's American flag was, quote, too big and ruined his view. The flag was regulation size, mounted properly, and on the neighbor's land. Federal law protects flag displays, and most HOAs cannot even restrict them. He wanted his agent to negotiate with the neighbor. Agents represent buyers and sellers. They are not foreign diplomats brokering treaties between flagpoles. 18. Picture this: a moving truck idling in a Vermont driveway for 6 hours, while the seller, who had legally just sold the house, locked herself in the master bedroom playing soft jazz and lighting candles. She, quote, was not done saying goodbye. Police eventually performed a civil eviction on a woman trespassing in her own former home. The new buyers later discovered candle wax had ruined a section of original hardwood. Closure can apparently be flammable. 19. Cashing out of a Maine property weeks earlier did not stop the former seller from being furious about solar panels. The new buyer wanted to install them. She no longer owned the house. She still tried to rally her old neighbors to file an HOA complaint. The neighborhood had no HOA. Emotional ownership of a property you have legally and financially exited is a uniquely American form of grief. and no therapist has officially named it yet. 20. Here is a wild bit of psychology that bites home buyers constantly. A New Jersey couple complained their new house felt smaller than the one they toured. Same address, same square footage, same everything. The difference? Staging furniture was gone. Empty rooms always look smaller without scale references like couches and rugs. This is exactly why staged homes sell for around 6% more. Their own brains betrayed them, and they tried to sue the listing agent over it. 21. Built in 1847, a beautiful Ohio farmhouse came with all the charm of a pre-Civil War structure, including floors that gently sloped because gravity has had nearly 2 centuries to do its work. The new owner wanted the seller to jack up the entire foundation. The inspection report had clearly noted, quote, sloping consistent with age. He just had not read past page 1. Old houses have personality. Some buyers cannot handle a personality. 22. Asked to artificially age her brand new Tennessee home, a builder politely declined and suggested she just open a window. The complaint? The house smelled, quote, too new. That smell is off-gassing from fresh paint, carpet adhesives, and engineered wood. It dissipates in a few weeks with ventilation. She wanted the construction crew to spray something that smelled like grandma's house. Lavender, mothballs, decades of casseroles. None of that is on the new build menu. 23. In Las Vegas, a complaint hit the state real estate commission because a backyard pool was too blue. The listing photos, the buyer insisted, showed a slight green tint she preferred. Pool color literally changes with sky conditions, water depth, and time of day. She wanted the seller to repaint the entire pool interior. We are talking a $15,000 request, triggered by a Tuesday afternoon mood and zero understanding of how light reflects off water. 24. Selling a home in 2 days at full asking price should be cause for celebration. Not in this case. A Florida seller wanted her real estate agent to return the commission because the sale, quote, happened too fast, proving the price was too low. The agent had run comparable sales analysis, showing she actually listed slightly above market. Sometimes you do your job too well, and people resent the competence. Speed is a feature, not a refund. 25. Filed against a home inspector in Pennsylvania. Failure to warn about future problems. Not current ones. Future ones. The buyer was upset that his water heater, given a clean bill of health at inspection, broke down 4 years later. Inspectors evaluate the current condition of systems. They are not psychics. The water heater carried a 6-year manufacturer warranty he never registered. His expectation was for it to last forever, on the inspector's dime, with no maintenance. 26. Imagine getting a call from a buyer post-inspection, asking the seller to disclose every argument that ever happened in the house. Not deaths, not crimes. Arguments. A New Mexico woman believed verbal conflicts left, quote, residual emotional toxins in the drywall. She wanted a written log, signed by the seller, listing every fight. Disclosure laws cover material defects, not marital squabbles from 2007. The seller refused, the deal died, and somewhere a divorce attorney would have loved that paperwork. 27. Filed against a home inspector in Maryland. Missed a leak. Sounds reasonable until you read further. The leak was caused by the buyer himself, 2 months after closing, when he tried to install a bidet and crack the supply line. He insisted the inspector should have warned him he was, quote, the type of person who would attempt unlicensed plumbing. Inspectors evaluate properties, not personalities. Your DIY confidence is not a covered hazard. 28. Hammering on her agent's door at 7 in the morning, a Virginia buyer was livid. Her brand new neighbors had a wind chime. She wanted the seller to pay for soundproofing because the gentle tinkling was, quote, sonic harassment. Wind chimes, in most jurisdictions, are protected under the same noise ordinances as birds. They are ambient. Her agent suggested a white noise machine. She suggested a lawsuit. The lawsuit went nowhere, but the chime is still chiming. 29. Closing on a Rhode Island colonial, the buyer found exactly what the inspection said he would find: knob and tube wiring in the attic. He sued anyway. His argument was that the inspector should have explained, quote, More emotionally, what that meant. Knob and tube is a known feature of homes built before 1940. It is documented, photographed, and usually flagged for insurance purposes. Reports are technical documents. They are not therapy sessions designed to gently break the news. 30. Demanding the seller, quote, undisclose the disclosure. A buyer in Kansas tried to argue that learning about a previous roof leak had ruined his ability to enjoy the home. The leak had been fixed years prior with permits and warranty paperwork. Disclosures exist precisely so buyers know what they are getting. You cannot legally unknow information after closing because it makes you anxious. He filed a formal grievance with the state board. They filed it directly into the trash. 31. Mid-tour. Through a beautiful Oregon craftsman, a buyer froze in the kitchen and announced she could not purchase a home where, quote, a microwave had ever been used. Not the current microwave. Any microwave, ever. She believed lingering radiation permanently altered the molecular structure of the countertops. Microwaves emit non-ionizing radiation that stops the second the door opens. Granite does not have a memory. The agent quietly removed her from the buyer pool. 32. Picture a buyer requesting a, quote, virginity certificate for a new build. He wanted written proof that no other prospective buyer had ever stepped foot inside the house. Showings are how houses sell. Hundreds of feet cross those floors before closing. The builder's response was a polite letter explaining that real estate is not a hygiene product. He bought elsewhere, presumably from a developer willing to pretend foot traffic does not exist. 33. 2 weeks into ownership of an Idaho ranch property, a man called his agent furious that coyotes were on his land. Yes, coyotes, on rural acreage in the western United States. He wanted the seller to install some kind of electric perimeter system retroactively. Coyotes have lived in that region for roughly 10,000 years. They predate the deed by a wide margin. Wildlife is not a defect. It is the entire point of buying rural land. 34. Standing in the middle of his new Kentucky home, a buyer called the listing agent demanding to know where the basement went. The listing clearly stated, slab foundation, no basement. He had assumed every home in America had one. Roughly 40% of homes in the southern states do not because of soil conditions, water tables, and frost lines. He wanted the seller to add a basement after closing. Basements are not microwaves. You do not just install one. 35. Ringing her agent at midnight, a Massachusetts buyer was hysterical because the moon was visible through her bedroom skylight. She had not realized skylights, quote, also worked at night. She wanted it bricked over at the seller's expense. Skylights are bidirectional windows. Light comes in, light comes through, and the moon is included in the package. The agent, who had given up on professional tone by this point, suggested a curtain. $12 at any home goods store. 36. During an open house in Brooklyn, a prospective buyer pulled the listing agent aside and asked for a complete log of every meal cooked in the kitchen over the past 5 years. Specifically, she wanted to confirm no meat had been prepared on the premises. She believed cooking odors permanently bond to drywall at the molecular level. Cooking smells do dissipate, especially with proper ventilation. They do not embed for half a decade. The agent did not have that log. No one does. 37. 12 people in a single weekend left feedback on a Denver listing complaining the carpet, quote, felt judgmental. The seller had recently replaced it with a deep navy plush. Apparently, dark colors made people feel like they were being silently evaluated. The listing agent ordered new carpet samples in beige. 3 offers came in within a week. Real estate is part real estate, part group therapy, and the carpet has more power over your subconscious than you think. 38. Showing a stunning lakefront property in Wisconsin, an agent watched a buyer drop to her knees and press her ear to the floor. She was, quote, listening for unhappy spirits. After 2 minutes, she stood up and announced the house had, and I quote, sad wood. The hardwood was original growth oak, beautifully maintained. She offered $50,000 below, asking to compensate for the wood's emotional state. The seller passed. The wood presumably recovered. 39. Canceling an offer 2 hours after submitting it, a New Hampshire buyer cited a single reason. The listing agent had pronounced the word, quote, foyer wrong during the tour. He insisted on the French pronunciation foyer. The agent had said foyer. Both are accepted in American English. He wrote a 6-paragraph email about linguistic standards in luxury real estate. The agent forwarded it to colleagues who still pass it around at conferences. 40. Asking the seller to remove what she politely called the smell of, quote, the previous generation. An Arkansas buyer requested a price reduction for olfactory remediation. The previous owners were in their 70s and had smoked indoors for 40 years. That smell is mostly nicotine residue saturating drywall, carpet, and HVAC ducts. It is a legitimate disclosure issue when severe. Professional remediation runs $5,000 to $15,000, and in this case, it was actually warranted. 41. Appraisals are based on comparable sales, condition, and square footage. They are not based on the appraiser's mood. Yet a Utah seller filed a complaint claiming the appraiser had given a low number because, quote, he looked tired that day. She wanted a reappraisal at the lender's expense, conducted only by appraisers she pre-screened for, quote, energy levels. That is not how lending works. That is not how anything works. The valuation stood. 42. Picture this scene at a Texas closing. The buyer pulled out a calculator, recalculated his 30-year mortgage, and accused the lender of, quote, hiding interest. He had just discovered that interest accrues over time. He wanted to pay only the principal and called the entire concept, quote, predatory. Interest is the cost of borrowing money. It is on every loan disclosure document, in bold, multiple times. He had signed all of them. The deal closed. The math, sadly, did not change. 43. Halfway through underwriting on a Nevada purchase, the buyer demanded the lender remove his ex-wife's name from his credit history. Not from a joint account, from history itself. He believed her impact on his credit score was, quote, emotional baggage, and therefore not legally binding. Credit reports document financial behavior across decades. They are not selectively edited based on relationship status. He blamed his agent, his lender, and eventually the entire concept of marriage. 44. Asked why she was offering $100,000 below asking on a Connecticut home, a buyer responded that she felt the price had, quote, bad numerology. The seller had listed at $666,000 intentionally because the home had 3 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms, and the address was 66. She found the alignment satanic. The seller refused to budge. Numerology is not a recognized appraisal method, no matter how strongly you feel about a digit. 45. Closing was delayed in Arizona because the buyer's wire transfer was held up by his own bank, and he blamed the title company. He had personally moved his savings into a credit union 3 days earlier, triggering a hold on large outgoing transfers. This is standard fraud prevention. He wanted the title company to, quote, vouch for his identity to his own bank. They are not character witnesses. They are paperwork people. The closing slipped 2 weeks. 46. Surveying his new property line in Oregon, a buyer discovered the actual boundary cut through his neighbor's prized rose garden by exactly 4 inches. Rather than ignore it, he demanded the neighbor remove the offending stems. The neighbor, who had lived there for 22 years, suggested a more reasonable conversation. The buyer hired a lawyer. Surveyors then found the buyer's own shed sat 18 inches over the line. He stopped mentioning roses. 47. A Tennessee homeowner called police, his agent, his lender, and a local TV station because his neighbor's tree dropped acorns on his lawn. He wanted the seller of his recently purchased home to pay for, quote, biological cleanup. Acorns are how oak trees reproduce. They have done this for roughly 56 million years. No one is liable for an oak doing oak things, and tree law generally holds homeowners responsible for what falls onto their own land. 48. Quote, the fence is breathing on me was the actual complaint from a Mississippi buyer about her shared boundary fence. She felt the slats were, quote, leaning into her airspace. A surveyor confirmed the fence was perfectly vertical and exactly on the property line. She insisted it had a, quote, predatory posture. She filed a complaint with the city planning department, which is a department that handles zoning, not personality disorders in lumber. 49. 2 weeks after closing on a Delaware property, a buyer sued his agent for not disclosing a church next door. Specifically, the bells. They rang on Sunday mornings exactly as church bells have done for centuries. Religious buildings are public knowledge, visible on every map application, and clearly noted in any decent neighborhood drive-through. Agents are not required to disclose what is plainly visible from the street. The case was tossed. The bells, undisturbed, kept ringing. 50. Building a 6-foot privacy fence on his new Indiana lot, a homeowner was shocked to learn his neighbor's 2-story house could still see over it. He filed a complaint with the city demanding his neighbor lower their second floor. Yes, the second floor of an existing house. Privacy fences have height limits, usually 6 to 8 feet. They do not retroactively shrink your neighbor's architecture. The city's response was a single sentence: no. 51. Pulling out of a contract 2 days before closing, a Washington seller cited a reason no one had heard before. She had decided her cat preferred this house over the new one. The cat had not been consulted formally. She had simply observed him napping in extra sunbeams. The buyers had already sold their home, packed a moving truck, and lined up movers. They sued for specific performance. The court ordered the sale to proceed. The cat adapted. 52. Listing his Missouri home for sale, a man included a clause requiring the buyer to send him an annual photograph of the front yard for the rest of his natural life. He wanted to monitor, quote, ongoing landscaping decisions. No buyer signed it. After 6 months on the market with 0 offers, his agent finally convinced him that property rights transfer fully at closing. You sell the house, you sell the right to choose your own shrubs. 53. Mid-closing in California, the seller pulled the listing because the buyer's last name was, quote, the same as my ex-husband. The buyer was a 32-year-old man from a different country who had no connection whatsoever to her ex. She forfeited a substantial portion of the deposit as breach of contract damages. Names are not a legal basis to cancel a sale. Trauma is real, but it does not override signed contracts and earnest money provisions. 54. Telling buyers their offer was, quote, insulting at full asking price is a unique negotiation strategy. A Colorado seller did exactly that, then countered at $50,000 above his own list price, citing, quote, recent enthusiasm in the market. The buyers walked. The home sat for 9 months and eventually sold for $40,000 below the original asking. Greed in real estate is one of the few addictions that punishes itself in publicly searchable records. 55. Selling a home in Georgia, an owner refused to leave any of the smoke detectors. He took every single one off the ceiling the morning of closing, including the hardwired ones. Smoke detectors are required safety equipment in most states for a certificate of occupancy. The buyer's agent caught it during the final walkthrough. The seller was forced to reinstall them at his own expense within 2 hours, while everyone watched. Pettiness has a price tag. 56. Voted into office on a, quote, beautification platform, a Florida HOA board passed a rule requiring all mailboxes to face a specific compass direction within 30 days. Homeowners who refused were fined $50 per week. One man's mailbox was attached to a brick column built in 1968. Reorienting it required jackhammering. He sued the HOA. The court found the rule arbitrary and unenforceable. The board members were quietly recalled the next election. 57. Cited for an HOA violation in Virginia, a homeowner stared at the letter in disbelief. Her crime? Children. Specifically, her children were playing in her own backyard, and the laughter was, quote, disrupting the meditative atmosphere of the community. Federal fair housing law explicitly protects families with children from this exact type of discrimination. Her response was a single phone call to a civil rights attorney. The HOA backed down within 48 hours and quietly amended their bylaws. 58. 26 pages long, an HOA welcome packet in North Carolina included a clause restricting the colors of birthday balloons visible from the street. White, silver, and beige only. Anything else was a $50 fine per balloon. One family's 6-year-old turned 7, threw a princess-themed party, and cost them $450 in pink Mylar violations. They paid, then sold the house within the year. Some communities are not communities. They are aesthetic dictatorships. 59. Buying into a New Mexico HOA, a homeowner discovered the bylaws required him to maintain his cactus, quote, in a happy posture. There was no definition of a happy posture. The board would simply visit, evaluate, and issue fines based on subjective vibes. 3 months in, he was cited for, quote, a slumping saguaro. Cacti slump because they store water seasonally. It is a survival mechanism, not a mood. He moved out within the year. 60. Forming a renegade sub-HOA inside an existing HOA, a group of Texas homeowners tried to fine other homeowners for, quote, insufficient holiday spirit during December. They had no legal authority. They had no standing. They had no actual board seats. They simply printed letterhead and started mailing fake violation notices. The real HOA shut them down, but not before 3 families had paid imaginary fines. Confidence and matching stationery can apparently override common sense. 61. Listed at $499,000, a Florida home sat on the market for 8 months with no offers. The seller blamed his agent, the photographer, the staging company, and Zillow. The actual problem was the listing description, which he had personally written and refused to change. It opened with the line, quote, "This house deserves better than most people." Buyers do not love being insulted before they walk in the door. The line stayed. The house did too. 62. Upset that his Seattle listing had only 67 views in the first week, a seller demanded his agent buy fake clicks. He believed inflated traffic numbers would, quote, attract real buyers psychologically. The agent explained that purchasing fraudulent engagement violates platform terms of service and could result in delisting. He insisted anyway. She refused. He fired her, hired someone willing to do it, got delisted entirely, and then blamed Zillow for, quote, censorship. 63. Photos of a Michigan home showed a stunning sunset behind the property. A buyer toured it on a cloudy day, did not see the sunset, and accused the agent of using fake skies. The skies were real, photographed at the right hour on the right day. Listing photos are not weather guarantees. They are marketing. He filed a complaint with the State Real Estate Commission, which closed the case in roughly 90 seconds. Even bureaucracy has limits. 64. Listing photos for a New York penthouse showed gleaming white floors. The buyer arrived at the walkthrough and was outraged the floors were, quote, dirty white instead of, quote, photo white. Professional listing photography uses lighting, lens choice, and sometimes light editing for clarity. Floors look different in person under different lighting conditions. He demanded the seller refinish the floors before closing. The seller offered to lend him a Swiffer instead. The deal collapsed. 65. Removing a virtual staging element from an online listing, an Arkansas seller forgot one room. The buyer toured the home, did not find the digital couch he had seen in the photos, and demanded compensation for, quote, the missing furniture. Virtual staging is clearly disclosed as illustrative, often labeled directly in the photo. He had ignored the label. He sued anyway. The case was dismissed in record time. Imaginary couches do not convey at closing. 66. 3 months after closing on his Iowa farmhouse, a buyer sued the seller for, quote, emotional damages caused by a happy memory. He had found a child's handmade Father's Day card in the attic, written by the previous owner's son, and it made him sad about his own estranged relationship with his father. Sellers are not liable for the emotional content of forgotten attic items. Therapists exist for this. The case was thrown out, but slowly. 67. 3 days before closing, a Massachusetts buyer panicked when she finally read her title report and noticed a recorded utility easement crossing the backyard. The power company had legal access to maintain a transmission line. She sued the seller, the agent, and the title company, claiming nobody had explained it. Easements transfer with property, are public record, and were on every document she had signed. They are not optional surprises. The closing happened anyway. The easement, predictably, did not move. 68. 5 days before closing, An Ohio buyer requested the seller change the house's official year of construction in public records. The home was built in 1977. He preferred 1980. Public records are maintained by county assessors and reflect documented permits, not buyer preferences. You cannot rewrite municipal history because a year feels off-brand. The seller, the agent, and the county clerk collectively refused. The deal closed on time with the original year intact. 69. Closing the books on this circus, here is a final gem from California. A buyer demanded the seller include a written, notarized apology for not building the house with a wine cellar. The seller had not built the house. He had bought it 12 years prior. The original builder was deceased. There was no one to apologize and no obligation to do so. The buyer still requested it in writing. The seller declined, in writing, with notable restraint. That wraps our tour through American real estate madness. 69 stories of buyers, sellers, and HOA boards losing the plot completely. The lesson? Common sense disappears the second money meets property. Which story surprised you the most? Let us know below. Like the video, subscribe, and we will see you next time.